So today we're going to be talking about Corona, communities, and Slack.
The eyes may be able to see, but without a heart, you cannot feel.
What's up, everybody? This is George C.O.C. Samuels, and you are tuning into episode 63 of the It Will Come Show. And as I just mentioned, we're going to be talking about Corona as a coronavirus, still live streaming from my room, communities, and Slack. So to kick us off, this article got sent to me over the last 24 hours, and it's actually very reflective of what I've been observing myself in terms of experiences. Right now, the coronavirus crisis is showing us how to live online. Although, a lot of businesses have been struggling a little bit with getting people to be able to work from home effectively, and also, starting to roll out any tech that's required at home and figuring out how to make things private and secure like they would back at their own office. It has also pushed everyone to pretty much do the digital transformation thing now. And so with this article, I think what was highlighted for me was just the examples, right, of things that have been working. So you've got hyperactive group texts taking place, FaceTime calls from friends and relatives, happening a lot more to try and stave off loneliness. Home cooking recipes on Instagram, WhatsApp to join a block-wide support group with neighbors, and one also I've heard of is this app called House Party, which just is used to help families and friends just play games through their phones, through their apps. And it's interesting in this article they say, expected my first week of social distancing to feel well distant, but I've been more connected than ever, right? And I think the difference between this and what we were experiencing in general, right? Because yes, we've been more connected than ever, but we've also been more lonely than ever. The difference here is that I think people are using the tech like we were supposed to, which was to connect with people we already know in the real world and connect with them a little bit more deeply. So, there's quite a few lessons around this already about how we have also used the technology and how it takes something like what's happening in the world to force people to use it properly. And then, of course, not discounting that more lives will be lost, businesses closed, and communities thrown into financial hardship. But if there's a silver lining in the crisis, maybe that the virus is forcing us to use the internet as it was meant. Right? Exactly what I was just talking about. So, 5 reasons Corona calls for online community building with your customers. So if you're a business, this is a brilliant time to be able to use community as a way to connect your customers more meaningfully, right? So you need to stay connected with your customers. So, we're already seeing this. So businesses that essentially invested nothing in community building are now seeing the effects of that, right? It means that their business pretty much has nothing going for it. If we take a look at, hotels, travel industries, things that might have just been commoditized, they have nothing to fall back onto, right? Because, the relationships with customers might have been loose, so it's expendable. And so now you have this situation where, what's left? And I think the businesses right now that are thriving quite well or being able to pivot are those that have actually some semblance of a community. And an example of this would probably be right now or last night. Over 24 hours, there's this event called Breakthrough Conference by the guys at Draper Startup House. And disclaimer, they are a client of ours over at FIA, who are sponsors of the It Will Come Show. And they are a global chain of startup hostels. But when they started out, their expansion came about really through passionate guests who had come through their space. And then, I didn't put in the website. So here we go, Breakthrough Conference. And it pretty much expanded rapidly within about 1 to 2 years due to guests coming through, really loving the place, the people, the vibe, and then going back to their home cities to set up a hostel under their same brand as well. And as a result of that, it meant now, especially imagine hostels during this period. Because there are hostels, it has meant, a lot of people are definitely not wanting to be in a place where, one, you have people who've been traveling around a lot, two, shared dorm-like rooms, and three, well, hostile environment. Now, because there was a focus on startups, there was that niche already, but there were a lot of very good connections already in place between many of the guests and staff. And so what that has meant is a rally from a lot of people who have been through their doors to actually make this conference that took place yesterday a pretty overwhelming success, considering it was the first online conference that was executed under the brand. So yeah, communities right now, I think if you haven't been investing in them, I suggest you do, because you can see how a lot of people are going to be leaning on communities or their support networks to be able to get through these hard times. You can take events online and make use of user groups. Okay, so exactly what I was just displaying with the Breakthrough Conference. You can easily keep peer-to-peer discussions going online. So, right, one thing that has already taken place with the Breakthrough Conference, there is also now a Slack group called DEN, which is Draper Entrepreneur Network, which will be released next week, but people are already signing up for it over at den.draperstartuphouse.com. So if you are an entrepreneur and you want to be part of a global entrepreneurial network, definitely highly recommend this one. We're going to be launching this because I'm a huge fan of Slack as well. Of course, part of the efforts in assisting with the build of Slack so it can actually do more things around community. Slack, the way that it was designed was focused on teams, so everything they've done has been focused on teams, but as I'm about to show you, there was always a huge opportunity for Slack to be able to accommodate community building as well. And so if we go here, there was this article that I came across. And Corona Hub, if you haven't heard of it, it's a Slack community that was set up by a guy named David Markovich, who runs an online a Slack community called Online Geniuses, the largest Slack community for marketers. And as a result of the coronavirus, and again, I'm not showing you the screen. Here we go. As a result of coronavirus, he built Corona Hub. So if you haven't heard of this or checked it out, I highly recommend you just go to coronahub.com. And what they're aiming to do is to use the Slack platform for community job board that connects healthcare workers and volunteers with medical providers. So if you are a healthcare worker or a medical provider or a volunteer, highly recommend you check out Corona Hub. Might just help you save some more lives. So this is already a good example of how Slack as a platform is assisting communities at this point in time. So yeah, this article is also shared is about how can you help your community during coronavirus. I mean, obviously right now, probably the biggest thing is social distancing, but of course you can support local businesses and not-for-profits. There's been a huge surge in home delivery if you have that available in your town or city. Not-for-profits, charities, of course, the focus is all really on coronavirus right now, so people aren't really paying as much attention to charities and other things, but we can't forget them too. There's definitely a lot of problems in the world, and they'll still need your help and assistance. Of course, contributing to local social service organizations. If you are, if you like to help, lend a helping hand, and you're not too afraid to be on the front lines, please go have a look at who is needing help locally. Donate blood. If you're okay getting out, you can still keep on your mask. Reaching out to family and friends, right? As we talked about, right now is a very good time to reconnect. I'm finding myself reflecting on quite a lot, looking at even just from a business standpoint, what's our core, what really matters, what do we want to be known for after we get out of this period. And something to take note of as well, you'll hear in other episodes that I'm pretty passionate about the economics and the financial side of all of this, and especially the socioeconomic. Communities and money actually have a very strong correlation in terms of cause and effect problems. So with that, I think right now it is a good time to reconnect more meaningfully with your family and friends and loved ones, right? So, all right, let's go back. And so while we were on the topic of Slack, this is something that excites me. For those who know, I am a huge fan of Slack in general, but they just did a redesign, which is perfectly timed for what's happening in the world. But they had a redesign of their UI, which means you can actually now organize your channels into groups. Now, this might seem like a very, very simple feature, but it's something that's been lacking in Slack and been a huge complaint for quite a while. And I guess it's taken coronavirus to actually get it implemented. So thanks, Slack. But yeah, a whole bunch of other features that are coming to Slack. I think it's great timing because, yeah, Slack is getting overwhelmed at the moment. And speaking of overwhelm, here are some stats straight from the CEO of Slack. Let's have a look. Okay, so Stuart Butterfield is the name of the CEO. And here we go. He gave a live sort of Twitter thread of what's just been happening to Slack. So here you go. Look at these numbers, right? 7:01 a.m., 10.4 million. 7:16 a.m., 10.6. 7:27, 10.7. 7:40 a.m., 10.8. 7:56 a.m., 10.9 million users, right? So in the business world, they have something called DAU, which is daily average users. And so they said, forget DAU, we're tracking millisecond active users now. And, this is all thanks to everybody pushing to online remote work. So some would say this is a good problem to have. But remember, this is rapid scale. That Slack is probably having a lot of their servers overloaded right now. I'm surprised that they are still up, and I haven't experienced a hitch with Slack yet. So kudos to you guys. You're doing a great job. Yep, so you can see here, coronavirus. Look at that curve. Bam. So this chart of newly created work teams, yeah, it's craziness. This sort of stuff I geek out to. But it just goes to show, right, what you're going to see here is, I personally, in my opinion, I think for Slack, because a lot of people are going to be working from home, one of the things that's going to be very important is actually building a sense of belonging, which accompanies or any sort of community, and building that in an environment like Slack. And there are a lot of ways that you can do this, and people are going to have to figure out how to do this now that they are solely online. Luckily, myself and a fair few others in our industries, either have been working from home for a while or have been huge supporters of online communities in general, right? Especially for businesses, for brands. And so I've definitely played around a lot with Slack and how to actually provide the structure, which is very important when you're setting up Slack, the structure for building an online community there. Because communities, and this was actually touched on yesterday in the Breakthrough Conference, communities do not scale very well. Networks do, but if you're wanting to still build a sense of belonging and tight-knit connection, it's quite simple. And this is why I use wolf analogies a lot, but you bring them into packs, right? They can be like teams or villages, if you want to call them that, of about up to 150. And that is taking on the Dunbar number. If you haven't heard of that before, just Google it, DUNBAR, the Dunbar number. And essentially that posits that most human beings can't really manage more than 150 relationships max. Now, if I asked you, can you actually name 50 people, right, that off the top of your head that you have a close relationship with? Would you be able to? Most people struggle, right? And this is just something to think about, because the same thing may apply when you've got your team or you're building a little village community. That number will play out. There's going to be a point, right, as the number of connections increase, where you start to feel like you don't know everybody and there's no meaningful connection there. So in Slack, what you can do is just make sure that you create these sub-channels as things start to grow for people to create their own sub-communities. In a work environment, these are just teams, right? Or they could be departments, but you just remember to chunk down. Chunking down turns things into more manageable, bite-sized things for us. Okay, so let's go back. So those are sort of the the things, right, when it comes to communities, when it comes to the coronavirus right now, when it comes to Slack is a major tool during this time. There's also, of course, Microsoft Teams, which is a competitor of Slack, and there's Discord. If you're a gamer, there is also Discord. Discord actually does, in my opinion, okay, let's see, Discord app. Yep. Discord does community quite well. Community goes hand in hand with games quite well. So people who have been gaming for a while actually know quite a lot about how to manage communities online. But let's see if I can open it up in my browser. Wow, I'm not a robot. Ugh, okay, forget that. So yeah, there are definitely a few different tools that you can use. And if you have any other tools or applications that you've been using to manage a community, to build one, feel free to drop it into the comments below. And if you have any experiences that you've been having with communities of your own, would love to hear. And of course, as always, I will always put a plug for our own community called The Pack, which is a productivity accelerator that's been running for about 5 years now. We have about an 81% return rate, which is crazy. We got people who keep coming back. And, it's because I think, we have put in a lot of effort around, rituals, really caring more than just what we call the head side of things. So, KPI metrics, whatever, but the heart. And we're really caring about where people are in their actual paths. It's not always just about getting shit done, going after goals, but also being realistic with yourself about what you're actually wanting and if you are on the right track. But yeah, we have a 50% off special right now. Obviously, a lot of people going through tough times, but if you apply now, the next round is going to be starting May 1st, so that's in about a month. If you are interested, have any questions, let me know. And as always, through patience and persistence, it will come.
The eyes may be able to see, but without a heart, you cannot.